had a chance to listen to Tom Hardy's mixtape?
No, I haven't. I'm not big on cultural appropriation.
You're going to have to help me out.
Just kidding. What?
You're going to have to help me out with what that means.
So a mixtape is when a rapper puts...
Not that. Do people know that this is a thing? I don't know if you know this, listener, but Tom Hardy did a mixtape in 1999, and someone on Reddit released it. Tommy Number 1 and Eddie Too Tall. It's the...
It's sort of interesting because mixtapes, I mean, obviously they've been around for a long time, but the fact that he's English and
he's British
and putting out he's English. Putting out a mixtape is interesting just because I don't know, like.
Well, I wouldn't call it putting out a mixtape. Like it wasn't. I think someone just had it leaked on Reddit. Well, this is from what 20 years ago.
Even doing it in general is like fascinating because the history of rap and hip hop in England is so much different, obviously, than in America. And at the time, I don't think, what's that hip hop
Sing Street
that's going on right now in England? I am an absolute jackass for not remembering what this is called. Why am I forgetting? Grime. I don't think grime was a big thing back in 1999. You had artists like the Streets that were going on.
Grime evolves into muck at level 18.
Yeah, I like that.
You can find him in Pokemon Tower.
I like that joke.
Wiser is one of their tracks, and he just straight up raps to the Godfather theme.
Okay, that's cool. I like that. Isn't it funny how Pokemon sort of made its comeback and then went away equally as fast as it came back?
No, check this out. So my nephew, who will turn...
Your nerfier.
7 this year. He'll turn 7 in March, and he's been getting Pokemon cards.
Oh, really?
So... What I have
Does
here...
he want to buy a Charizard card? Because I would sell it to him for like $150.
He got a couple of decks, and he didn't get any energies or trainers.
Really?
Like at all. And I tried to teach him how to play, but it was nearly impossible.
He just wants to collect the cards.
No, he wants to have a good deck. He just doesn't have the cards yet. And I was trying to tell him that trainers are important while he's playing or whatever, but he just doesn't have any. So I got him here's a baggie full of 100 trainers, and I got him a baggie of 100 energy, and I'm going to give them to him tomorrow and show him how to play.
Can I tell you a funny story about playing Pokemon cards in middle school?
No.
So I was obsessed with it, and I was obsessed with building the best deck that I could. Well, I did that, and my best deck was a electricity and rock/fighting deck, and it was such a good deck that I went undefeated with it, and I beat everybody in my school that the game became not fun anymore.
Right.
You know when you get too good at a sports game where you're just winning all the time, and you're just
I mean, that's just pretty much been my entire life. Because I've just been way too good at anything involving sports that I just wreck shop. And
I mean video games specifically, or just games like...
I did okay at NCAA football.
Really? So FIFA became just uninteresting after a while because I was at this point where I could just up the difficulty level, but then it was too hard almost. So there was no balance.
Did you ever play NCAA?
Well, of course
football.
I did. Of course.
I hate
it was better of the two games. It was better than Madden.
Yeah, I hate that they quit making it.
Yeah.
It was so much fun because it was just there was more of a progression with your player, with your character, instead of because I know Madden has that franchise mode.
Yeah.
But it's different. That's another reason why I love NBA 2K. I mean, the game isn't that great, but the idea of being able to create your player and starting from the ground floor and sort of evolving.
So from the bottom, now we're here.
We'll get to that.
So here's what I would always do. I'm not really young enough to be just obsessed with multiplayer. It was fun. Well, actually, the reason I didn't dive super into multiplayer games is because when Halo 2 came out, I was so fucking obsessed with it that my life just withered away.
We all were. Lockout? You remember playing on Lockout?
Yeah, of course.
It's a great map.
Ragnarok. What about Ragnarok?
I don't remember what that looked
might have
like.
been Halo 3. That's the one it's a map that they've sort of recycled over every single Halo, but they've just altered it slightly. It's a huge map. It's one of the biggest maps, but you have one base on one end, one base on another, and it's just one long thing. There's some caves on the side you can go around. Okay, anyway, so I played a lot of the single player modes, but with the sports games, when you did Madden, when you launched it, did you do the fantasy draft? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
I did it every time. I just like complete like, Brett Favre was on the Ravens, and Peyton Manning was on the 49ers and stuff.
How
like that.
dare you?
What?
Doom Peyton Manning like that. Put him on the 49ers, please.
Well, he could have had like, I don't know, a stacked team because it was a fantasy draft. It wasn't like nobody was on the same team that they were on.
Okay. I'm following.
Yeah, so stick around for Sight and Sound Gaming 2022.
We used to have like 2K tournaments where we would draft our players. Is that what you're talking about?
No, we didn't do that.
You're talking about a simulated draft and then playing that way.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we would, like 6 of us would get together and we would draft outside of the game. We would draft our team and then go into the game and edit it and then play each other. And it would be like single or double elimination. It was so much fun. Madden 2005.
Did you graduated high school?
That soundtrack is amazing. It has one
Strata?
of my Piece by Piece by Strata is on it. It has one of my all-time favorite songs on that soundtrack. You know what that is? Same Direction by Hoobastank. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Random Pull. Same Direction by Hoobastank is one of my top 5 favorite songs of all time.
Also had Audio Vent. Familiar with Audio Vent?
Do you remember was it Earshot? Was that the name of the band or the song?
That's a band, yeah.
It was Wait by Earshot. I can't wait.
Yeah. Audio Vent is the vocalist of that band is the brother of Brandon Boyd from Incubus.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you listen to
Interesting.
them, they sound very similar.
Yeah. Well, they're brothers.
What's that?
They're brothers.
That's true.
That's why we sound similar.
Jesse Lacey has a brother who has a band, and they're pretty good. I don't remember their name. They have an unfortunate name, but regardless. It's Saturday when we're recording this. My girlfriend's out of town, which means I have a lot more personal time, a lot more free time to sort of get things done. And I was looking forward to it just like being super productive. And I messed it up by filling my time with doing other things like this podcast. I did my listen along last night for the 1975, which took a while, setup and all that stuff. And then Carl's coming over.
Did you get just a wave of my comments all at once?
No, I only got one comment from you, to my knowledge. I haven't gone back though.
I just dropped into the video. I was still at work,
Right.
and I was in the back of the building, which usually doesn't have the best service. I was seeing your video, but no one at all, especially you, was reacting to the things I was saying as I was dropping my comments in.
You only saw one.
Yeah, which is weird. So I went back later to look at what I had said, and where it would say Brad Donovan 6 minutes ago,
Right.
like where you dropped. All of a sudden, all of my comments showed up and said just now. So it was like 20 minutes later after I had posted all of them, it said that they just now posted. So I was laughing to myself, wondering if you had just gotten a wave of my comments completely out of context. For those of you who don't know, this is real talk. When Jaye Williams is not with me,
Yeah.
and when it's not Monday through Friday, 8 to 5:30, I legitimately have no idea what Jaye Williams does.
That's right.
And Jay will argue that it's a self-involvement type thing. But I would argue that Jay just doesn't explain what he's doing all the time. So the actual conversation, this is how it went down last night. I'd like to be done with recording by 4 or 5 o'clock. I have a lot of shit to do. And I'm like, okay, I'm assuming that he's doing something with Kayla, date night or something like that. And as the conversation goes on, he reveals that Kayla is out of town.
That's right.
So then I'm really bamboozled as to what you might have to do.
Yeah.
And I think that conversation happened yesterday. And it wasn't until today where I actually found out what you were doing. So I think you just don't always delve into all of the information.
Yeah, working on the new separator jams, which is funny because to my knowledge, I thought we were done with our EP. Not done with it, like done writing the songs.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we're doing, which is fun. So it's fun to just do music stuff from time to time. I put out my Some Life EP, which still waiting to show up on Spotify and streaming services. It is on SoundCloud. It is on our YouTube channel. One of the reasons why I needed to I had no intentions of putting that out. I had shown you a video that I was working on.
Yeah.
I was like really obsessed with doing that. It was taking a lot of time. There were things I was going to go back and tweak. And I came home Tuesday and I think it was Tuesday, and I just uploaded it. I was like, I don't need to do this. I just need to get it off, get it out, just put it out. So,
are you satisfied with it?
Yeah, I'm really satisfied. I think I'm happy with it. I'm happy. Of course, I'm already excited about doing something else. That's just how I am. I don't like living in the past. Let the past die. So now I'm really excited about this the separator stuff because it's important to me. We've had this conversation before. Brando and I had this conversation. It's important for me to distinguish Some Life and Separator, and by the thing that we're about to put out, I think people will understand that a lot more.
Some people don't know
what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah,
that's fine. I have 2 music projects. My solo project is called Some Life. And I have a project called Separator that I do with my buddy Carl Bragg. We put out an album last year.
Luke doesn't know the difference between the two.
and that's fine. You know what's funny? When Brando was explaining his reasoning, he agreed with your sentiment. And when he was explaining it...
Whose sentiment? Luke's?
Yours and Luke's. You both share that sentiment. Like, you don't really see the difference between Some Life and Separator.
I don't know if I ever said that.
Okay. Especially when I put out that first song, that lap song, that had more of like a rock vibe to it in general. But the rest of it is like hip hop beats. Anyways, I think I was a little bit more like, what? What do you mean? Because we had already been working on new stuff. So, yeah.
Well, at least you have a working music project.
Yeah. I was telling you off air. I'm excited about Brave the Storm stuff.
Taking a lot longer.
Yeah. See, this is what I don't miss. Listen, Josh, Eric, if you're listening, just get it done. Just finish. Just fucking finish it. It sounds fine as it is. Send it.
No, it's not really even an issue, but I just think it's funny because in the collection of songs that we're doing, and I'm still not 100% sure if it's going to be an EP or full length. I'm pushing for a full length because we do have the material in the our back catalog. But my problem is, like, we are taking our time. We always knew we were going to take our time because Josh is busy. He's about to go out on tour in February, so he'll have even less time to work on this.
He's going on tour with Brave the Storm.
No.
Explain that to people.
Josh.
Josh is the guitar player of
Josh
the band.
Suddeth, he's in the Facebook group. He randomly drops in on some of the comment section there. He tours with Brantley Gilbert, who's a famous country artist. He's the guitar tech for Brantley Gilbert.
Sometimes Reliant K as well.
Yeah, but he hasn't been doing that though.
Right.
That was like a year or two ago. But he also produces music. Like, one of his singles just got released on European radio, and it's doing really well too.
Fantastic producer.
Yeah,
really good.
He's really good. He produces our stuff. So anyway, no, the only concern I had, Josh and Eric are in Nashville and I'm here. My concern was that they wasted their time re-recording our old songs. So,
right.
And my point was, do that last. Get our new songs done first. Like, right. Don't waste your time on stuff you already know how to record and how to play. So, but anyway, regardless, it'll happen. And I originally thought it would be spring, but it might be summer. But it's also just one of those things where Brave the Storm isn't an actual thing, so there's no timetable. It's not like we're about to go on tour or any shit like
right.
that. We're just putting out music, so there's not really any kind of timetable.
I was thinking about this earlier today. If I were to ever perform my solo material live, which would be super easy, you just hit play.
Right.
I would have to have somebody else do some of the vocals because it's just impossible. I have some lines that overlap, and they just can't be done.
Backtrack.
I can do the backtrack, but it would be kind of weird because that backtrack, the way it would play out, I would be standing there not doing anything for a little too long. So I'm going to have auditions for a hype man.
So like every other artist.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to have auditions for a hype man.
No, I meant
somebody to sing backing vocals.
I meant that you would have vocals playing without you actually performing them. It was a joke and commentary.
Yeah, but specifically the one song that I'm thinking about, it would be sort of awkward to just not have anything play.
Did you I had a news story pulled up. I was going to talk to you about what MoviePass is doing, but I just wanted to throw out there that there's the government's investigating a there was a bear, a wild bear.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it wasn't a wild bear. It was a zoo bear, but it went through the drive-through of a restaurant.
Is a zoo bear like a Zubat from
Yeah.
from Pokemon?
And it hangs out with Muck and Grammar. Yeah.
There you go.
So imagine working a drive-through. Imagine working at McDonald's and the van that pulls up is driven by a bear.
It'd be great.
That's what happened. So the government is investigating that.
Berenstein Bears.
But I wanted to talk to you real quick about MoviePass. We talked about Sundance off air because your buddy Michael is at Sundance for whatever reason.
Yeah, strange.
But Sundance is going on right now, which means we might have some interesting movies coming out. Coming out of the festival.
I didn't even know this was a thing. Like I thought that the movies that are Oscar buzzed.
Do I need to explain Sundance to you?
I mean, maybe.
A
large portion of our audience doesn't give a fuck about Sundance, including me.
The Sundance Festival that's going on right now.
Yeah.
All of those movies are going to be shopped, and I guarantee the first wide release of any of these movies will be September at the earliest.
Yeah, it's infuriating. How big is South by Southwest for movies now? Because it's huge for music and technology.
South by Southwest is the kind of festival that they premiere movies like Sausage Party, and I think Disaster Artist was premiered at last year's South by.
I think a lot of television ends up happening. It's like, for me, South by Southwest seems like it would be the perfect. It's not a con. I guess it kind of is it's a festival, really. It would be the perfect thing for us to go to, and it's also like the Comic-Con for the watch. And what I mean by that is like by the more highbrow sort of segment of this whole pop culture coverage space.
I don't know if I would call it highbrow necessarily, but
I'm looking for a word.
It's like
hipstery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just got a little bit of everything. I mean, it's a food festival in the same way, so it's not as as far as movies goes. It's not the volume.
Started primarily as a music festival, though.
That's right. Yeah. The volume of movies isn't like with at Sundance. It's not the same, but there are still notable films that debut on South by. But that would be a great thing for us to do.
We should figure that out. And like we're just literally #transparency coming up with this on air. I mean, I could envision a future, which this is why we need to launch the Patreon. But I could envision a future where we go to South by Southwest. I go off and do my music thing. I'm doing Blow and with Post Malone and in the bathroom, and you're trying to get James Spader's autograph or something like that over on the movie side of things. And by that time, we've hired Cody Ray Hecker to cover television for us. That's my dream.
MoviePass is hanging out at Sundance right now, and they've announced that they're going to acquire movies. So for anyone
what now? They're going to acquire movies.
Yeah, they're there to buy. They are there to buy and distribute films.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, everyone knows what MoviePass is by now. It's a subscription service for movie theater ticket admissions, right? You pay $9.99 a month, and you can go see all the movies that you want. Before, MoviePass was like $50 a month, and now that it's $9.99, it's because the man in charge came from Netflix, so he sort of followed the same subscription model. I'm sure they're selling a ton of data so that we don't have to pay as much. But MoviePass. Oh, also this gentleman also worked for Redbox. So
The future of MoviePass is their own streaming service.
I think so.
100%.
I mean,
it's the model of
and it just came out of nowhere. Like there was no.
It's a model of Hulu. It's a model of Netflix.
Right.
Yeah.
There was no warning. It was just like Sundance is going on. By the way, MoviePass is going to buy movies. It's like what? That's crazy to me.
We don't talk about this much on Sight and Sound, but it's come up a lot more recently, I think. For people out there that aren't as maybe in tune with the business side of things, people might not know the fact that a lot of businesses, whatever they seem like they are on the surface, is not what that's not what they're trying to do. Not all businesses that exist, especially tech companies, are in business to make money. We just talked about how we know of apps that their main goal is to just get a bunch of people so that they can sell to a bigger tech company.
It's like we talked about how Spotify isn't considered a tech company, but they are.
Exactly. And it's sort of fascinating that a company like MoviePass, maybe they had the idea of a streaming service in mind, but the gateway to do that was to sell a little red card that you could just get into the movies for a while. I just think stuff like that's fascinating, man. Sight and Sound Business coming in 2023.
I don't know if they hired someone for marketing or whatever. I'm curious though if imagine if you paid $9.99 for MoviePass to go see any movie that you want, but that also covered your subscription to the streaming service. That would be really, really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially now that Netflix. I just got it was more like a month ago. Netflix went up again for me. So, I mean, it's not really a complaint, but I think I'd be curious to see how the space reacts to this coming out of nowhere.
This is going to transition nicely into something that I want to talk about. I was thinking about this. I was listening to The Watch on the way over here, and they were talking about celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Breaking Bad premiere, which is really cool and it's interesting. And Chris Ryan brought up the fact that Breaking Bad is still streaming on Netflix, and it sort of just him saying that brought up a very interesting thought in my mind. I feel like right now, because this whole landscape of streaming services and this battle for content that's going on we're sort of spoiled in this moment because so much stuff is available to us. But there is a lifespan and a mortality rate for some of this content. I think Lost just went off of Netflix recently.
Because it went to Hulu.
Right, exactly. And of course that's the case.
It's contract.
They'll bounce from one place to another, but we will get to a point where there are so many streaming services that we will have to pick and choose. And the accessibility of some of this content, I feel like people should take advantage of it. Like if you're not rewatching some of the best shows that are available on Netflix, which is probably the most widely used service, you should probably do that because it's not going to be like this forever.
I think it's interesting to think of how many series that there are now, because I think there's over 500 or something. I think it's interesting to think about how many are actually the shows that have a lasting effect.
Right.
Because then it's reduced from thousands over the past few years to 5.
Yeah.
Think about the shows that not only everyone has seen, but the shows that you immediately think of when you go to recommend someone watch something. That's Breaking Bad, that's Game of Thrones, Lost. You could even argue if Lost is even in that conversation. But
I would say so.
Even some of the biggest shows at the time.
Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights, or even a Sons of Anarchy. As time passes, those shows start to get lost.
Well,
which is really, really interesting.
I'm glad we're talking about this too, because it's funny. I joke about not wanting to live in the past and this and that, but as of late, I feel like people in Sight and Sound, the community, the Facebook group, whatever, even us to a certain extent, we're spending a lot of time doing retroactive sort of stuff. Maybe because what we started this whole thing to begin with is happening, I think, before our eyes. I witnessed it last night in that listen along, people getting interested in something that they weren't interested in for the first time and wanting to go back. And like obviously we're re-listening to the 1975 catalog, but I think it would be beneficial to, and we've talked about potentially doing a show similar to this. I think it would be beneficial to start some sort of TV club as a community where we're collectively rewatching a show together that we can discuss. If there's people out there that haven't watched Lost, if there's people out there that haven't watched Breaking Bad and this stuff, I just think it would be really interesting to do something like that.
Do you need to take a break, or do you want to get into the assassination of Gianni Versace?
I can in just a second. I do want to touch on one more thing just real quick.
Yeah.
I think we are very close to announcing Patreon. Very, very close.
Yeah.
We've actually already set up the page. We just sort of need to fine tune a few things and make a few things, and then we're going to announce it and probably do an after party to sort of explain everything. I want to talk real quick, just for a second, about the video that you uploaded. It's funny how old that video was, the Wild video that you did.
Oh, yes. I'm glad you brought this up.
Interesting reaction to that, and it's something that, if we would have planned it out and talked about it, I think we could have probably predicted what the reaction was going to be to that. It was funny sort of seeing it, though, my take, and then I'm interested in yours, to see people say stuff like, oh man, we would love for this to be a thing. We would love to see this all the time. It'd be awesome if Sight and Sound Weekly was like that. Listen, I'm so excited that you guys got to see that before we launched Patreon, because something that we talked a lot about is before we launched a Patreon, we wanted to make sure that you guys could see some of the things that we want to do, that we have planned. It's not that we're just not doing stuff like that. It's legitimately because we cannot do stuff like that. There are things that we can do, but tell people why you had to stop doing that to begin with.
Well, that video, there's a couple of those that came from the Film Beef YouTube channel. Film Beef is what I did before Sight and Sound. I had a guy filming those things. I had
his equipment?
I had his equipment. Well, one of them was my camera, but regardless, I had a guy that was there filming all of that. And the scheduling of it was a nightmare. And what originally happened, I wasn't obviously
because there were 3 people involved. There was you, him, and whoever your guest was.
Right.
So 3 people scheduled.
So it was just having that third person there made it that much more difficult.
Right.
Because then we were on his schedule. I can't be there with cameras, so then there's no show. I think that there is a version of that we could do just with our phones. We have the tripods.
Yeah, for sure.
And that might be something that we do in the near future, maybe in the next couple months. But what you saw there specifically was just incredibly hard to pull off and do frequently.
Yeah.
What I do want to say is that everyone's reaction to that video, it's the exact same reaction that I had. Because, yes, I did that we did that 3 years ago.
Right.
But when I thought of it the other night, just sitting here, I was just sort of shocked in the sense that look, I'm really proud of Sight and Sound, and it's a completely different. There's a completely different approach to Sight and Sound than there was for say that.
Yeah.
But I was just so excited that I don't want to say that Sight and Sound hasn't lived up to that yet, but that is an example of something that we want to look forward to. That is a goal, and I was really sort of inspired by that because mainly because, and a lot of people don't know that was 3 years ago. That was before you and I came up with Sight and Sound, and it was before either of us knew that we were going to work together one day. And to see the quality that we produced back then was really, really inspiring.
For sure.
So, it's just something to look forward to, hopefully in 2018.
And again, the Patreon is the promise of more content, but it's also, by people investing, it's the promise that we can make even better content in the future.
Right.
And you know, I say it all the time, but money and all this stuff that we would ever acquire for Sight and Sound has nothing to do with like going out and buying a pair of Yeezys or, you know, Gucci or a new car or something like that. It's specifically so that we can unlock additional time to do what we want to do. You know, whether we talk about it or not, there are people involved, or that there are people that know about Sight and Sound that we hear from all the time that think it's a fantastic idea. Mark and Christian have always been very supportive of Sight and Sound. Even the people at TV Time, they love what we do, so we know we have something special and exciting. The other thing, the last thing I'll say here, it's interesting too to sort of see that, and you had made the statement, I joked about it regardless of how it might have been taken. You had texted me about it and I didn't respond, and your post was something like, if I had it my way, this is how it would be. And I commented and joked, it was a joke, that I was like, oh, I don't even remember what I said. I was like, oh, it's your way. I didn't want this either. But that's not really the case. But I was thinking about it over time, and I've always been big about, you and I need to do more apart than, obviously Sight and Sound works best when we're together, but the more we can do apart from each other in order to cast a wider net. If you plan 5 shows without me involved and I plan 5 shows without you involved, those are 10 shows that we don't have to rely specifically on each other. And then however many shows we do together, it's just, think about all that content that we can produce. And I'm proud of you for sort of putting out these movie shows now. And I think that was a challenge at first to sort of get a grasp on, but you feel a little bit more comfortable doing that now.
I actually feel the opposite, but not in the sense that I don't want to do like, I'm totally fine with doing things apart from each other.
Right.
But I think the selling point is when we
absolutely
is if, like,
yeah,
going back to if I had my way,
it's at its best when we're together.
I was gonna say, if I had my way, going back to that point, we would do way more together.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it wouldn't be at the what word do I want?
Expense.
At the expense of, yeah, it would just be that much more content.
Right.
But like, I would love to every time we get together to record weekly, I would love to do a video together. But we just haven't kind of picked up that habit yet. But as far as the comments go, when people are saying things like, I want weekly to be like this, I get it in the sense, and I'm not gonna put words into your mouth. Maybe you meant it one way, but just to kind of explain it a little bit, that's not what weekly is. So if you're saying I want weekly like this in the sense that 2 camera setup, something like that, absolutely, we want that too. But I'm looking at the editing. I was looking at how I'm timing the humor. Yeah. That it's a completely different tone. So in that sense, it's not like weekly at all. And if we were to bring that format directly into Sight and Sound, it would be something completely different. Right. I mean, that video is manipulated for timing and humor, for jokes. You and I sat down with an idea that it would go that way. We sit down to do that video 3 years ago, completely different than how we sat down to do this podcast. So
it's geared for video. Yes. It's specifically for video.
I knew that was a video. It wasn't a podcast. So, yeah.
Well, just to speak to what you're saying, listen, I've challenged myself to try to do my music show as video. Dude, I can do it, but, and I brought this up, the execution is 10 million times less efficient. I mean, for those that are paying attention to Schmo's stuff, weekly would be more like what the Harloff and Ellis show is. A stationary camera and this and that. Right. It's just because of what we have at our disposal.
Right. And there will be a lot of like re-examining how we do things, I think, this year too, 'cause based on efficiency, but also just how we want to grow the channel and things like that. And sorry to make this long-winded, but I did want to bring this back up. But
you're going to talk about reaction videos?
Yeah. I want to talk about reaction videos because, so we talked about how YouTube threw down this mandate that channels weren't going to be monetized unless they have 1,000 subs or 4,000 hours of annual viewing time. We're fine on the viewing time. We like doubled that. But we're still racing to get 1,000 subs, and right now we're at 970. I think we're very close. Jay and I, we're kind of being funny about it. We've been putting up traditional reaction videos, and
something that we said that we hated, that we never do.
So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because I think it's funny, because we're joking about selling out, but it's like what Gary Vee says, Jay. The market is the market is the market. So I want people to understand this too. We also have friends that do traditional reaction videos, like our new friend Taylor Robinson. She has the Finely Tailored YouTube channel, and she does these traditional reaction videos, and she does a great job, and her channel flourishes.
I told you about that guy who does music video. A lot of people are like, oh, I've never seen a music video reaction. There's a guy on YouTube that has been a channel less than we have, and all he does is music video reviews, and he's got like 17,000 subscribers.
Yeah. So if you don't know, our actual stance is that we're not interested in watching that type of video in general. That's just not our personal taste. We wanted to bring something different to YouTube. And so whenever we've labeled a video reaction or trailer reaction, we're not watching said video or listening to said song inside the video. It's a direct reaction. It's our direct hot take on what we've just seen. And the videos can do fine. But without a doubt, going back to the market is the market is the market, whether we like it or not, there is an audience for this type of video. So I've been more accepting of doing that because business-wise, it is smart. The downside is that we can't monetize any of this, but it'll help subscriber count. So I just wanted people to wanted to clarify for people, because I think some people were confused knowing how we feel about those type of videos, but all of a sudden seeing that we did like 3 in a day.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's my sort of approach to it is one. It's sort of what we've always said. It's not for us to judge like what people like or not. They're either going to watch it or they're not. And it's a good avenue for people to discover our channel for the first time. And I've always said it, like, if I was ever going to write a book, fuck yeah, I'd write a 50 Shades of Grey, make my money, and sell off into the sunset, and then write whatever the fuck I wanted. Whatever. Make your money. No big deal. But my sort of approach, to be honest, I had a lot of fun. The first 2 that I did the Justin Timberlake video reaction. I did a reaction to some Drake songs. And I had some fun doing it. I was sort of parody. I was offering up a parody of those videos that I had seen in the past. Literally, the reaction videos that I've watched are it's just somebody watching it, and you get their emotional response. I'm sort of, I don't know, being a little bit funny about it.
I think maybe
I burped on camera.
Maybe I was just kind of thinking of it all wrong, because maybe the video is more about the emotion, like it causes more so. Because
I think it's more about us than it is what we're watching.
Yeah,
right.
Because I've always had the approach, like, I've seen the Infinity War trailer. I don't need to see it in the corner of another video. Like, if I was going to watch a trailer, I'd watch the trailer. But, and to give Taylor Robinson some more credit, is that, again, I was going through her channel, and I watched her watch Infinity War, and I even watched her watch The Last Jedi, a trailer that I've seen a million times. And seeing her get emotional made me get emotional. And I was like, wow, I kind of get the value of this. Like, this is just really interesting and unique when you can go on Netflix and find the scripted content, or go on The Watch or Collider to see people give their takes. Right. But to see someone have that particular reaction, it's just a unique experience. And so I give her all the credit in the world for making me emotional alone in my room.
This is the last thing. This is the last thing I'll sort of say about this. I also think it's fascinating to see the different types of people that watch these things and what they're looking for, because the initial response to some of the ones that I was doing was like, I think Ralph Lenardic said, watching the music reactions is fascinating because you actually give commentary on what we're watching and seeing and maybe potentially educating us on some things that we don't know about. But when he said, when I watch some trailer reactions, it's just watching people watch the thing that I've already seen.
Right.
And that's a little bit boring. But then some people are like, you're just talking over the song. And it's like, yeah, I am. That's exactly what I'm doing.
If you have a problem, go listen to the fucking song.
Exactly. So, and it was sort of interesting last night to do this 1975 thing, because it made me think, like, it is such a shame that listen, I get not monetizing things 100%, but the fact that we even have to, like, I had to add jump cuts to the music one that I did when I just listened to the song. But it is a shame that we have to do that, because I feel like we are adding value to what it is that we're actually taking in. I don't think it's sort of right to make money off of something like that. But then that's like a weird line, like, but I can make money off of, reviewing a movie or reviewing a song, but I can't reference it. And technically, I guess legally you can. The law does state that if you do provide commentary about something, then technically you do not fall under copyright infringement.
But we don't have the energy to contest that every single time, because they're still going to have a problem with it.
Or somebody could still take you to court anyways, and then you just have to pay the legal fees to handle it.
To clarify, by the way, you did a watch along in Facebook Live and
listen along.
Excuse me. What did I say? Watch along?
You said watch along, yeah.
It was a listen along to the 1975 in our Facebook group. And so if you're into that kind of thing, the link to our Facebook group is in the description down below.
I had no idea how it was going to go. I thought,
look good.
I'm never too sure how certain things are going to play off, because, like, we're blessed to have this Facebook group, but we're not like a huge deal. So I'm never like, are people going to be interested in this? But it seems like people went back and watched it. I think it was up to like over 100 views, which I'm so down. That's a big thing to do, like to sit down for an hour and a half and just listen to music with me. It's just like, I don't know. I think it's pretty neat. I think it's a pretty fun thing to do.
It was good. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
You'll figure it out.
It's funny. The next one we're going to listen to, I don't even really care for the album that much. So I'm in love with the one that we just did.
The next 75 album?
Yeah, I'm in love with the one that we just did, but the next one, maybe not so much. I still want to do Kanye West too, so.
Evan will be happy to do that. I am going to decide to take a break here. And when we get back, we can talk Gianni Versace.
Let's do it.
And then we've got some music stuff and, I don't know, maybe some movie. I don't know.
Maybe some movie.
All right.
The Sight and Sound YouTube page is the place to be. We always appreciate you checking out all the content we put out here on our podcast feed, but there is a ton of supplementary content in addition to what we talk about here. I'm over there doing album reviews for all the latest album releases. Ryan has you covered with movie news, reactions, and reviews. And from time to time, we even do television reactions in addition to original content that honestly is just meant to entertain you. Go to the description box of this podcast, click the link for the YouTube channel, and subscribe for even more sight and sound goodness.
Okay, so let's talk television. You had a good idea before the break.
I did?
About watching a show together.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe getting people involved. So J.K. Simmons was on Le Batard this past week promoting this new show he has on Starz called Counterpart. And I've been in a sci-fi mood because we've been talking about Black Mirror and Electric Dreams and all that kind of stuff.
Did you ever watch the trailer for that Netflix Blade Runner show?
Yeah.
Why have we not talked about this?
I don't know, but it's
what's it called? Parallel
Altered Carbon.
Yeah, and it was based off of a book,
which is funny
much
because
like Blade Runner.
Right. Well, I mean, even the title of the show, it's like, let's just put together two badass words.
I mean, they were
just like Blade Runner.
They were literally, they just made no bones about it. It was so. Okay, you could go into it being like, this kind of looks like Blade Runner. It seems like Blade. They even use like the same font and the same like stylization.
Here's what I want to say. We are definitely going to talk about the show when it comes out.
I didn't mean to derail this, but yeah.
But no, it's fine. I'm glad you brought it
sci-fi.
up. I want to call it something right here, right now. I hope that Netflix usually keeps the viewership under lock and key.
Mm-hmm.
But similar to what they said about Bright, I hope that something comes out about how many people watched Altered Carbon.
I hope it does great.
Because I'm willing to bet that it does do great.
Better than Blade Runner?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be
and
hilarious.
then when we see those numbers come out and it challenges the studio system and traditional film distribution in Hollywood.
Do you think that might be why they? I mean, obviously it's not why they're doing it, but do you think? Obviously, somebody watched this trailer at Netflix and said, "This looks like this. Let's do it."
No, it legitimately could be
Yeah.
the reason why that they're doing this, because Netflix could be ready to attack.
They're saying
Hollywood.
We'll just
as
do
we
our
know it.
own.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I want to do, hopefully, some numbers will come out.
Right.
That way we can compare this to Blade Runner 2049, and everything that we've been saying about the traditional Hollywood way of distribution and all that, hopefully it will prove us right, and hopefully it'll shake up the system a little bit.
You know what I would like to see Netflix do? I would like to see Netflix go to like an AMC, something like that, and purchase one screen in every single theater and say, you know what? You want to talk about this? That's fine. We're going to go ahead and put one of our movies on Netflix, but also in theaters, and see if anybody goes.
I doubt the theaters that would have to say yes, though.
What do you mean? What do you mean they'd have to say yes?
The theaters can say no.
Right, of course. I'm just obviously this is hypothetical, but
Right.
just so that they could prove a point, like no one's going to see our movie in theaters; they're staying at home watching it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, this show that J.K. Simmons was promoting is called Counterpart, and it's science fiction. It's really cool. It's coming out on Stars, so if you don't have Stars, you can get it through like Amazon Prime. If you had that, it has like a Stars add-on or whatever. Actually, no, I don't think it's an add-on. I think they have a deal where Stars content is just on Amazon Prime already.
That's good.
So anyway, Counterpart is the name of the show. Collider.com's Allison King describes the setup. It's a 10-episode thriller. There's a portal underneath a UN agency in Berlin that split our reality into two. So there's our world and another, and all of our doppelgangers live there in a parallel or live lives that may be parallel or vastly different to our own, depending on what happened to each of us since the split. So J.K. Simmons was talking about reading the script for the first time and having this unbelievable twist at page 20. But it's no longer really a twist because the marketing campaign shows that there are two J.K. Simmons in this show, much like James Franco and The Deuce. So I think that I'm definitely going to talk about it at one point. I don't know if I'm going to talk about it on Weekly or if I'm going to do a video following the show, but I think this could be an interesting show, and apparently it's pretty good. So I would like to tell all of you guys and invite you guys to watch it along with me, if you so choose.
Yeah, but that's not much different than like when we were watching Mr. Robot, any show that we would cover. I think what we were talking about primarily, you just drew that comparison about watching things together as a community. Was more, I was speaking more towards retroactively watching something.
Oh,
rewatching something.
Well, I was just bringing it up because it's not.
You guys could have watched The Path with me.
This isn't like Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot is like prestige television. I just figured I would recommend something that maybe not a lot of people, because it's the first episode is tomorrow. So when Sight and Sound Weekly comes out on that Monday, it will have already premiered on Stars.
Right.
So you can go back and watch that first episode, and I don't know, because maybe you never heard of it before, and I think it's kind of interesting. So, but our TV portion is about Gianni Versace. It premiered earlier this week. You and I were massive fans. This is part of the American Crime series that Ryan Murphy does on FX, and you and I were both big fans of People vs. OJ.
Not true.
Okay. Very good.
I haven't watched the entire thing. I've only seen bits and pieces of it. What I saw was absolutely fantastic. In fact, let's talk for a second. Hashtag transparency.
It was my favorite show that year.
Real talk. I'm glad that we're talking about this show. I'm glad that we're going to talk about the show, how we're going to talk about the show. I didn't watch the first episode. You issued a challenge to me.
Of People vs. OJ.
No. Of Gianni Versace. You issued a challenge to me to watch it. And there's a few reasons about this. Why I haven't watched it. One, and this is something I don't want to spend a ton of time on talking about, but it is a real thing to consider. We live in a day and age right now where people are starting to have to pick and choose what they watch and can watch. And I have this stance with music to where if it's essentially not on Spotify, that I'm just not going to listen to it. I don't have that take with television.
Okay.
I don't have that take with television, but there are people out there that have cut the cable. They can't watch the show. I just haven't gotten around to watching it for that reason, but also because of my schedule lately, I've been working 2 hours early and 2 hours late every single day at work. Had all this shit to do yesterday. But also the third reason is because I actually do really want to watch this with Kayla. So I will be on board for the first 2 episodes next week. But I'm fully willing to get your take. I want you to pitch the show to me and everybody else that's not watching it. Give me a reason. Tell me why I need to watch the show.
Well, as far as... Let me walk it back a little bit. So I loved People vs. OJ. It was my favorite show of the year.
Right.
So what's really intriguing to me is that first OJ and now Gianni Versace, those are two things that I lived through, but because I was so young, it's like I'm learning about all of it for the first time.
For sure.
Even something as high profile as OJ.
Right.
Over the years, like I know the imagery of the white Bronco and all that kind of stuff.
This is definitely the lesser known of the two, though.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's without a doubt.
Did it at any point feel, because you didn't have the knowledge of it, did it at any point feel fictional?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Which is funny is because the Versace family is claiming that they took a lot of liberties with this show.
Which is strange.
And I want to talk about the ethics of that here in a minute. But it's funny because I had that in my mind, and I'm sitting here thinking, is it wrong of me to think that this is really well done, even though it's not accurate at all? So,
but do you know what it's based on? Do you know what the show is based off of?
Well, you mean the book?
Yeah.
The book that was written.
So the book had the backing of the family when it came out. So now it's sort of like they're backtracking on, which I get it. There's going to be some...
But there are even levels to that, though, right?
Right, of course. Ryan Murphy came out and said, there are some things that we've taken liberties with. We're essentially filling in some gaps.
Right. So, and that's what I was going to say is that, I go into this show sort of intrigued and looking at it like this might be an education. This might kind of show me what the 90s were like in a different light, because that's when I was a child, so I didn't know about a lot of this kind of stuff.
We're also aware we're not watching a documentary here, right?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, I'm excited to learn about some things in our history that I didn't know about, but I'll also have to realize and, have the reservation that it's not 100% accurate, which is funny because the episode ended in a disclaimer, and to paraphrase, they were like, yeah, we took our own liberties. So the show says that they did that. They're not trying to hide it necessarily, but
it's always interesting with that too, because one of the reasons why I never watched Straight Outta Compton, and even when I went back and watched the Defiant ones, and they started talking about NWA era, I was involved with things. We had Gary. What's his name? I forget his name. May rest in peace. I wasn't involved in the podcast. The guy that was the manager of NWA was on In the Galaxy.
Right.
We were privy to his side of things that they just didn't cover. And I was always like, man, I just don't know how I can take this in while removing that knowledge from my own mind. So maybe that's how the family feels about it. But I get that.
I
know. I'm not talking to you. I was more speaking to the fact.
I'm kind of lucky in that, like, look, if they just completely botched the story or like tainted his memory, and maybe that's where they are coming from. I haven't really read up on it too much,
right?
But I know that they have a problem with it, and maybe that's enough, right? Like, but
Jerry Heller, by the way. I'm
Jerry
sorry.
Heller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my bad. Let's edit that out.
Paul Giamatti's character. It's
Right.
who Paul Giamatti portrayed in Straight Outta Compton. Your other podcast interviewed Jerry Heller before his passing. For those of you who are interested in that. So the ethics here are interesting because I have the privilege of not having to care about any of that
Right.
and to judge it based purely on the fact that it's a television show, scripted television series. So I don't know if that changes how I take in the show as far as I'm going to critique it. I'm going to review it. There are two conversations that I can have here, and I think that's this portion is going to be mainly. It's just my critique of the show, and not so much a commentary on the ethics of it or whatever. But the stylistic approach, it's sort of the same as People vs. OJ. It doesn't look in the same in the sense that this is a very Miami show, so it's tinted yellow and looks like summer. I made a joke on Twitter last night that 1990s Miami looks like King's Landing. Just the way especially like seeing Versace's mansion and things like that, it's kind of exotic in a way.
I do want to touch on Miami in just a second. Go ahead.
It was kind of fun to see it look a little exotic, even though it was Miami, Florida in 1997. Well, they open with 1997, and right off the bat, you witness the moments that lead up to the assassination. Right. That's like it's one of the very first thing you see is the actual assassination.
The murder.
Yeah. And then you backtrack.
Did you actually get to see that in People versus OJ?
The murder?
Right.
No.
Okay.
No. So anyway, you see the assassination, and that might have been a response to their own show. Like, hey, we didn't do this in People vs. OJ. Maybe we'll do it right at the top.
I guess the argument is technically we don't know who did. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like that show is weighted one particular way.
Right, of course.
But you know. So you start off at that moment in 1997, and then you backtrack to 1990, and you meet the characters that the show is primarily going to follow.
Right.
So you have, not only does it have this just an interesting particular look that I liked. Thought the acting was really well done. So Edgar Ramirez is playing Versace. Again, I'm talking about people that I know hardly nothing about, right?
Yeah.
To me, Versace is a Drake song.
Giovanni Versace. There's a big difference between. I'm sorry. There's a big difference between Gianni Versace and Donatella Versace. Who Donatella Versace is her own persona today in today's culture. Exactly.
This is a gated community. Please get the fuck off the property.
Yeah, it's not a Drake song.
Yes, it is. He
Is
did
it really?
the remix with Migos of Migos.
The remix.
Okay. That's the one people care about, not the original.
I don't know about that. Drake is overrated.
You didn't even listen to the bars.
I know.
So anyway, I love the look. The acting was there. Edgar Ramirez plays Gianni. Penelope Cruz plays Donatello. Who is it?
Donatella. Come on.
Will Chase, who he played the Red Ranger's dad in Stranger Things in that one scene.
The guy from Kentucky.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Will Chase plays the lead detective.
Where's he from? Georgetown?
That arrives. No, he's from here.
Oh, he's from Frankfurt?
He's from where I live. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He arrives on the scene, and he's the main cop. Not the FBI, but I'm actually friends with his niece.
Okay, we got it.
So anyway, I love seeing. I just thought the acting was really well done, and the premiere didn't do a whole lot for Versace, but it was more about his killer.
Yeah.
It follows him and sort of his background, and so I learned all
the guy from Glee.
Is he?
Yeah.
He looked familiar.
He's my favorite part of Glee. Are you kidding me? Oh my God. We need to go listen to him fucking sing because that guy, dude, a straight banger. He was a part of the Warblers. What are their name? No, the bird singers. I don't remember their name. He was gay in the show.
Okay, very good. Oh, he's gay in this show.
Okay. Well, okay. Is he gay in real life? I don't know. It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't.
I don't think so. Did you say really? As in, like, you didn't know the story? Like, do you not know the story behind the assassination? Because
no.
As far as I can tell in the premiere, and I kind of knew this following the show up until this point, which is that he was a closeted homosexual,
right. Many lovers,
who falls in love with Gianni Versace,
right?
And he knows that the world doesn't accept him, and he is in hiding. And so, obviously, I don't know the details yet because we still have 9 episodes or whatever, but something builds up to the point where he feels like he has to kill Gianni Versace, a former lover of his. So, yeah, I think it's going to tackle and that's what's great about these shows, is that even though they're historical in that sense, they always cleverly somehow still reflect where we are as a society. OJ did it. This show's going to do it. Katrina will probably do it if that's going to be the next series that comes out. I think this premiere was sort of, like I said, the premieres are for promises, and they sort of, I think, they opened the box for sure. But it was just mainly about learning about the killer's character more than anything, and then we actually just saw the events unfold as far as the assassination and the police arriving, and then we meet Penelope Cruz's character towards the end.
What's her name?
Donatella. We don't get a whole lot from her, but I mean, pretty much for pretty much every reason that I love People vs. OJ, I'm loving the show. I don't think I'm as involved in this one. It's just based on, like, this still just kind of feels like it's the skeleton of the show. Like, it didn't give me a whole lot, but the acting's there. It looks pretty. Ricky Martin plays his lover in the show, and
she bangs.
Good to see Ricky Martin. And I don't know, man. It's like the best way to describe it is.
Also recently came out.
That was like 10 years ago.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that long ago.
I'm going to look it up.
Within the last 3 to 5 years.
I'm going to look this up.
And that is recent.
Do you have any questions for me?
I don't have any questions. I have statements. I am so full in on the 90s.
It was 8 years ago, and I said 10.
That was closer than, no. It's pretty recent. Within the decade, pretty recent. So I'm putting so much stock in the 90s. I've been saying it over and over and over again. I'm done with the 80s. I'm sick of the 80s. I want to get rid of it completely. I want to erase it from my memory. I want to erase it from time. The heat meter is high on the 90s. Moving into 2018 and beyond, we've got Captain Marvel coming out, which is set in the 90s. People vs. OJ is set in the 90s. This now set in the 90s. I'm nostalgic of the 90s. I'm a child of the 90s. I'm big on it, so I support the show for that. One thing that I think is fascinating that I'm obviously Miami is a locale that has a lot of history and pop culture. You have the Will Smith song Miami, which is fantastic. You have Scarface. One of my favorite things, though, about the modern state of pop culture and television and movies, even music to a certain extent, is that we've gotten so much in LA and California and New York. I like that pop culture is sort of highlighting these different locations, even places like Nashville. Like I'm starting to hear so much about Nashville and Miami where they're blowing up to be these hotbeds of creativity and whatnot. And I like that shows like this show, even though I haven't seen it yet, can sort of portray it with so much character. Your location being a character in a place is very key, I think, to setting up however you are watching a show and the story that it's telling. Does this show do a good job in that regard? Does it make Miami feel like it's a character in the show?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it feels like it's otherworldly, even though it's just Florida and I've been to this place.
Yeah, and I mean, people say that Miami is the most European country in America. That it's just has this different vibe.
European city in America.
I mean, some people would say country. It just has this different vibe from so many other places. In the United States, and I think that's cool. There's a show on television right now that's highlighting that.
I'm so happy to hear you talk so highly about the nostalgia of the 90s, because Jay doesn't like watching things that are what he would call period pieces, even though it was just a decade or so
I mean,
ago.
It is a period piece if you think about it. Just because we lived through it doesn't mean
This
that's
kind of
not.
show and People vs. OJ, these kind of shows prove something that I love so much, is that stories are so much more interesting and intriguing and thrilling without the existence of high-speed internet and cell phones. The
Right.
fact that this person killed Gianni Versace and then ran away and then wasn't found immediately, it's like, and he was just walking around the same city, it's a lot more intriguing because it's a much higher intense game of cat and mouse. And so yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that you're excited about that.
It's
idea.
funny too, because I'm sure there's people out there that are like, we've had plenty of things happen in the 90s. I get it, but listen, in comparison to what we've had of the 80s with music and movies and television, it's just like, man, let's move past that. Music's been on it for a minute, especially rock music lately, really been tapping into a lot of 90s alternative, a lot of grunge music influences. But yeah, I'm definitely ready for just a wave. I need Stranger Things to jump forward a whole decade.
So you're gonna watch this with Kayla when she gets back?
I am. Yeah, we've already talked about it.
Good deal.
Probably going to subscribe. You know what else I need to watch? I need to finish that show that takes place in the birth of crack. What was that show called?
Snowfall.
Yeah. Was that good? I didn't hear anybody talking about it.
I watched the first 2 episodes.
Yeah?
I've watched as much as you have.
Very good.
Okay, so there's that. I'm definitely looking forward to this show, and I think it has a lot of potential. And that's aside from all of the apparent controversy that's surrounding it based on the Versace family. But anyway, if you haven't checked it out, I watched it on FX Now on my Xbox. So, and of course, it might be like a free premiere on iTunes or Vudu or something like that. But definitely check it out.
I'll tell you what we'll do. Next week, maybe we can get together when we get together and podcast. Maybe we'll do some sort of like a short 30-minute little catch-up on these first 2 episodes.
Okay.
We'll
definitely.
record it before like a after schmo or something like that.
Good deal. All right, so I think the meat of this show is going to be we have a couple of music topics that we want to hit. So I just figured that we could quickly go through movies this week.
Okay. I was ready to get into music. Okay. I thought we talked about the music was going to be the meat of the show was going to be the middle, because people usually tune out towards the end.
This is going to take like 5 minutes. I don't know that that's always the case. I mean, we can put up a poll. Let's put up a poll on Facebook group and see how people listen to our show, because I don't know that I have a bearing on that at all.
People aren't interested in movies yet in 2018. Nothing interesting is happening.
So I made a trailer reaction to Tomb Raider, so I could give you my quick take, but I wanted to hear from you because you hadn't seen the trailer yet until a couple minutes ago, and I'm pretty high on this trailer. I thought it was really, really, I mean, in the sense that I didn't quite know from the first trailer what we were going to get with this Tomb Raider film, and I don't want to have the same conversation as far as, video game movies have always been a letdown. We don't need to have that kind of conversation. All I know is that I saw this trailer. It was better than the first one, and I just really, really enjoyed it, and it made me feel a whole lot better about this movie coming out. And again, we can talk about the fact that, it's probably going to let us down, but I'm just calling it how I see it. I see a good trailer, and I enjoyed what I saw. I just showed you the trailer, and then I showed you a featurette that came out. It came out. It's 4 months ago. So I saw the featurette that we watched. It was Alicia Vikander becoming Lara Croft. I saw it when it came out 4 months ago, and I rewatched it having seen the trailer again.
The first trailer, I didn't care for it. I thought it was nothing. Mm-hmm. To be completely honest with you, I thought it was over the top. I thought it just didn't look right. Like the scene, I still thought this in the second trailer, the scene of her jumping from the boat just looked like the physics of that was all fucked up. Like I wasn't buying it. The second trailer is better. Heat meter's still so low on this film for me. You couldn't lend me this to watch it.
Do you have
the featurette is the best trailer for this that I've seen. That is fascinating. I love how much practical stuff is going on in this film. In fact, and this could be a whole other conversation too. If you're doing that much physical work in the film, I saw a shot of her like swinging from a vine through some trees that I thought looked terrible CGI'd. I mean, it was so.
It might not be the same. It might not be the same shot.
It was obviously CGI'd, and I'm just like, you're doing all this other work. Let's just try to stick with that as much as possible. I think
in the trailer, you're talking about the shot. So what happens is she opens a parachute, and the shot is the parachute bringing her through the jungle, essentially.
Yeah,
like it's
perhaps
it's
she
pulling
was
her.
Swinging.
She's in the air. She's in midair, and a parachute that she has opened is swinging her through the jungle, and making her hit up against trees and shit. I think that's the shot you're talking about. So I think what you saw in the featurette might just be something else, but it might be a different
this
shot.
wasn't in the featurette. This was in the trailer that I saw.
I thought you were comparing.
No,
I thought you were saying you saw both versions.
No, I think that's
CGI.
what's actually unfortunate about it is that the trailer shows so much practical effects and action and stunts, whereas if I would have never seen that based on the trailer, I would have never known. I just think that this looks too much like a video game.
Okay,
that's what sort of bums me out about it.
I think a movie that I'm comparing this to, because this comes out in March, and March more than ever sort of become the beginning of the summer season, if you will. I mean, what we've seen the past few years is like some really notable high-profile properties. I'm not going to say that they're high-profile movies per se, because they don't always translate into big money. But a lot of the quote-unquote bigger movies come out in March, and then April kind of lags. And then May is when it picks back up again. But this reminds me of Power Rangers. Because Power Rangers came out last March. And I would argue that it's about the same size of a film. Power Rangers is probably a little bit smaller. But you think that Power Rangers would have more legs. But I think based on the what I've seen from this trailer, I think the Tomb Raider is probably going to be more successful. Because
I would say so.
We're coming off the trend that, the three most profitable movies of last year were led by women. And I think that Alicia Vikander embodies Lara Croft to a T. I always thought that she was fantastic. I remember back in the day when they were talking about casting Daisy Ridley. Right. And I was like, Daisy Ridley would have been a good Lara Croft too. But Alicia Vikander, I think, is nailing it. And we did see her do a lot of this stuff practically in the featurette that we watched. So when I like most of the shots that we saw in the trailer, because I think you can tell that she is doing some of that stuff practically. She was in those rapids being taken. Right. You can tell that all that was shot practically, and they even showed it in the featurette too. And I think a lot of those shots actually look really good. Like there's that shot of her falling into the mist when she's holding that parachute. I thought that shot looked fantastic. Her holding on to the plane, and I thought a lot of it actually looked really good. The shots that you described, her jumping off the boat and her being swung through the jungle, I agree that those are the worst looking shots.
Right.
I don't have a massive problem with them, but they are glaringly the ones that look different than everything else. I just think that I think what I'm surprised. And even without seeing the featurette, I'm surprised that it looks like just a lot of care was put into this movie, though. Because, again, so much of it was practical. I loved seeing how much care Alicia put into the character. And I actually think that it doesn't, like, special effects aside, it looks like the story is really grounded. It actually, to a point, I even said it in my trailer reaction, maybe to a fault of the movie, it might not be till the ending where we see a lot of the action, because it looks like, it's her trying to find her father, and then she's held captive in the jungle for so long. I was like, maybe it's more of like a think piece.
Well, see, I mean, I actually have a completely opposite take to that. I think, to me, they're focusing so much on action, and of course, I have nothing to base what I'm about to say off of. I think the thing that concerns me, just because I don't know, is what the actual narrative of this film is going to be. I mean, obviously, it's laid out what the goal is. I mean, she's looking for a dad, and she's going on this adventure. But I think in this whole landscape of big tentpole movies and blockbusters and all this stuff, to sort of sell a movie specifically, I mean, they're trying to sell this action, right? It looks like a fun ride.
Yeah.
It's sort of, I think we're becoming a little numb to it to a certain extent. Like, we need a little bit more. I mean, I don't know. That's just a theory. But to me, it just seemed like that's all they were pushing. And I'm more interested in finding out what the story is here, what the narrative is. To me, I'm getting a little sense of like a Batman Begins, where there's a lot of training involved. You're getting to see a lot of the stuff. But the way that narrative was told was very interesting. There was a lot of jumping around in time with that, and that was fascinating to me. I'd like to see more from it. Right now, I've mentioned that my heat meter is very cold on this, but I'm interested in seeing what people say about it. Kayla will be interested in this. She just watched the Tomb Raider movie with Angelina Jolie.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that we have two completely different takes.
Yeah.
This trailer got me more hyped than ever. I see a lot. Like, I saw a couple people react in our Facebook group that they were bored by the trailer.
Well, that's sort of what I'm speaking to. Like, we've seen the action before.
I'm not saying I'm bored. I'm saying I think it was due to the fact that people weren't expecting it to be so much character based. Again, I mean, that first half of the trailer is just setting up Lara herself and then seeing her interact with Walton Goggins. And then there are quick action cuts that sort of bring the trailer to a close. But it's like the majority of that trailer, it's a quiet, grounded character piece almost. And I just think that's unique to the fact, again, going back to we don't know what to think of these video game movies. The fact that it's coming out in March, there's no guarantee that it's even of quality. It's like, I'm just high on it. I'm surprised by what I see, and more than ever, I'm looking forward.
Is there anything to be said about the fact that she's just constantly running through the jungle? And obviously, a lot of people will make comparisons between this and something like Indiana Jones. And in the most recent Indiana Jones movie we had, one of the worst scenes was a chase through the jungle. I mean, obviously that's very loose ties.
We only really saw like a couple of clips of her running through the jungle with a bow and arrow.
Almost constantly her running through the jungle.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. There's that whole thing where she's going through the rapids.
Okay, if she's not running through the jungle, it's all a shot of her moving from left to right,
and also
through something, whether it's water, her jumping off of a plane, or jumping off of a boat, her running through the jungle, her flying through trees with her parachute.
You could say that about any action movie then.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I think it comes across as a little bit boring. We're just seeing the same thing.
You're going too far. You're just saying it's boring because it's an action movie at this point.
But literally, I mean, you can go through. It's constantly her just moving, running, or escaping, or eluding things.
Okay, I think you might be making general correct observations, but I don't see how it's criticism in the sense that it's any different than anything else that we've seen. And I'm not even saying I'm making that point, but I'm not saying that this is an imitation of anything else.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I think you're just challenging the construct of an action movie trailer, which I don't know how much.
If it was a little bit, if they mix some things up, I think
they mixed up plenty. The first 2 minutes,
I saw a lot of the same stuff.
The first 2 minutes, it's her looking for her father, and
and sometimes
flashbacks. And
sometimes hip hop albums have slow jams every now and then. It's just sometimes when I watch trailers like this, it just seems like a bunch of the same thing over and over and over again. That's why I'm low on it. That's why I'm low on it. And I can sympathize with people, Gesundheit. I can sympathize with people who might be bored of it. I get it. I'm bored of it. That's my take.
I can't wait to see it. I'm not going to let anybody bring me down. It's also almost identical to the reboot of the video game too. I mean, some of those shots are very. I mean, it's clearly influenced by
Hey, man.
the video game.
Relax on
and
the sneezing.
I hope that this comes out, and then Warner Brothers, same studio by the way. This is Warner Brothers. So I hope that this does well, and then
Could be worse. Could be Sony.
It's true. I hope that this does
PlayStation.
well, and then DC and Warner Brothers are reactionary in a positive way and go, we got to make our next Batman movie like the Arkham games, and then I'll finally get what I've wanted for all these years.
Yeah, I mean, Arkham games, video games have
the Arkham games.
No, I know, but I was about to make my point with that for some reason.
Oh.
Video games full of property, they just have to fucking do them right. That's right. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Video games need their Christopher Nolan. Video game movies need their Christopher Nolan.
Let me know what you think. I'm obviously way higher on this than Jay is. Let me know in the comment section if you're listening to this on SK Plus. So what you thought of the Tomb Raider trailer?
Am I good? Am I good?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about your reactions, your trailer reactions, was the fact that somebody asked you a question about vaping. Hey, what juice you vaping there, bro?
I made it. I made it, Jay. I'm
Fucking hilarious.
I'm an influencer.
You know what's funny? In
the
my
vape community.
in my 1975 thing, before it started, I was kind of shooting the shit and playing DJ, just playing some music for people. I was making some jokes. I asked a question. I said, "Who in the Facebook group likes music the least?" And some people's initial reaction was Ryan Snelling.
Really?
Yeah,
That's funny.
actually, it was Brando, but primarily. But
Yeah.
and then we were joking about Kevin Marks and liking music. But anyways, I don't know how somebody asked me a question about vaping, and I got roped into talking about it for a second. And halfway through me talking about it, I just thought I vocally said, "I fucking hate talking about this right now."
Vaping is the topic of vaping is your
It's the music
talking
topic
about,
today. Oh,
talking about the weather.
Yeah, sort of. No, look, music this week was going to be one thing, and it ended up turning into something completely different. Foreshadowing music topics and discussions is very difficult because it can change just on a whim, which is what makes it so exciting. We spoke off air, and I made a statement, and I want you to say what your response was, but I said 2018, what has already happened in January alone, is already made this a more fun year than 2017 because we've got the Kendrick Lamar news with Black Panther and the music that's been dropped. We have Justin Timberlake album and content coming out. The Fall Out Boy album that came out this past week of Mice and Men, which is one of the bigger bands of that genre. It's already a more topical year. It's already a more fun year to sort of discuss and get hyped for.
It's funny as a fan of things, as a fan of the things that we talk about.
I'm just a fan of some things.
On Sight and Sound, my habits have been more in favor of music and television than they have been with movies. I don't think I still have not seen a movie in 2018.
Yeah.
And it's been, 3 weeks? Yesterday, I listened to 2 brand new albums.
You're going ham on some music. I was watching your Spotify like a hawk.
Yesterday, I listened to 2 brand new albums that dropped yesterday, which is unlike anything I've ever done in the history of Sight and Sound.
Even I was shocked. I was like, damn.
And then not to mention the 2 tracks that dropped late last night as well. I have it all covered.
The
Jay.
Drake songs, yeah. So it's just fascinating that all this stuff is going on because, and I've mentioned this before, but one of the things that I was the most excited about with starting Sight and Sound was the fact that 2016, when we actually started, was such a crazy year for music topically. So much stuff to talk about. And when we did our Pop Culture Crown, I discussed in depth about how it was a year of surprises, a year of debuts, and people... we were talking about a lot of artists that people really didn't have a lot of context of, doing a lot of educating people.
Yeah.
But now it seems like just this year we're starting to get what we had in 2016, which is a cycle. It's all about a cycle. So many people released music in 2016 that they sort of blew their wad. And it was hard to get excited in 2017 if you were just a more casual fan. Now, we were going to just discuss this entire segment of Mice and Men until we had a few things happen this week. One, we got a new Justin Timberlake single, which I did a reaction for, did my whole preview of his upcoming album, which comes out in a couple weeks. Man of the Woods. We also got a Fall Out Boy album. Fall Out Boy is a massive band.
I'm surprised Fall Out Boy wasn't the primary topic.
It could have been, but we can break that down in a second. And then last night, out of nowhere, 2 Drake songs dropped, sort of just without warning, which is just a thing. It happens. So this week, this discussion is sort of going to be about the new releases this week. Where do you want to start? I'll give you the opportunity to cast your vote.
I don't want to talk about Drake yet, but I do want to ask you real quick while I'm thinking about it. Is there any way that I was the first person who told you about the Drake songs last night?
Unfortunately, no.
Fuck!
God! I have notifications turned on for certain Drake things.
Yeah. Should have known.
What's funny is
I was so excited.
I saw where I will give you some credit is I saw the notification on my phone of something Drake related, and these notifications are basically release based. So I was like, what is this? But then when you confirmed that it was 2 songs, that's sort of what the news was to me. That's actually what prevented me to watching Assassination of Gianni Versace. You got to know, the things that you value. But again, what do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Fall Out Boy.
Let's talk about Fall Out Boy. So
Mania.
Yeah. First of all, I had no idea that I thought this album came out because they released a bunch of singles, and I just didn't care anyways. Obviously, I know Fall Out Boy is a massive band. I'm a big fan of their early work. Their first 2 albums, I think, are fantastic from front to back. Their second album was my album of the year. It came out, and there's a car going off out there.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's not mine, is it?
No.
Okay.
It's all good.
And I believe Infinity on High was where things sort of took a turn for the worse. There are songs on that I really like. I love a lot of songs on that album.
I was going to say.
But from front to back, I started to see a little bit of a shift in what they were sort of focusing on. They've always been a band that has been very tongue-in-cheek. They've always been a band that has been very passionate about wearing their influence and inspiration of pop music on their sleeve. Even when they were making pop punk music, they unabashedly were showcasing how influenced they were with pop music, even on those early albums. But once they sort of hit specific hits that went outside of the pop punk genre with songs like Dance Dance and what's that Memory song? I forget what that song is called. Thanks for the memories. Songs like that. They sort of, I don't know if they were just enticed by the success of those, but they sort of went off in that direction. And I just didn't care for it as much. It's not really a critical response. I just personally didn't care for it. What's your sort of history with this band?
Infinity on High was probably the last album that I took seriously. And not for any reason. I mean, I enjoyed that album. But I think they just became less relevant. And because of that, I quit caring. And then
it's funny that they sort of shifted at the same time when the pop punk and mainstream emo genre sort of went by the wayside. Maybe not by the wayside, but it sort of fell in popularity.
And what year did Infinity on High even come out? It was
2008?
2007,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
so
right towards the end.
It's been a long time. Like Folie à Deux, I didn't listen to, and some of these albums I don't even recognize at all. So it's been about 10 years removed from comfortably being able to talk about Fall Out Boy. So again, I have several albums I don't have any context of or whatever, but in my opinion, they were just kind of gone, less relevant. Pete Wentz broke up with Ashley Simpson.
But you're aware they were making that stylistic shift, and to be fair, it wasn't necessarily that they fell out of interest in general. It's not like the heat meter just went down on Fall Out Boy because they were still very successful to a wider audience. Last year, one of their...
But there's no doubt they were less popular than they were, though.
I would argue the opposite. I would
think
say
they're more popular than ever?
100%.
Really?
They're far more palatable now because, and we'll talk about why.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying I just haven't heard anybody talking about Fall Out Boy.
outside of our circles, trust me, there are moms, there are children today, and kids that love Fall Out Boy.
I'm saying I'm saying I don't know. I'm not saying I disagree, but
just for curiosity's sake, what is their monthly listenership on Spotify? 42,000.
10.5 million.
It's a lot.
Yes. Oh, without it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you knew that. I'm not saying you didn't know that.
I'm saying I was always under the impression. I can't disagree. I was always under the impression because you're saying in our bubble, but we're in a music bubble. So to me, it still felt like they were so far removed, and like they had that song on the radio that was like that Scooby Doo song, and then I know that they did the Ghostbusters theme, but even that didn't to me signal they're more relevant than ever. It signaled like because they were attached to this movie, I didn't take serious.
So let's talk about where they are. The music bubble that we're in is a critical bubble and a diehard music fan bubble. A little bit highbrow, a little bit snobby. You don't hear a lot of people in this bubble talking about, Imagine Dragons or The Fray or even, what's that other band? What's the guy from Mars? What's their name?
30 Seconds to Mars.
No. The other band.
Mars Volta.
No, the other band. What's the guy? Adam Levine? What band is he?
Maroon 5.
Maroon 5. Sorry, not Mars. Another MAR band. Sorry, I have a CT, in case you didn't know. But you don't really hear people talking about those bands either in these circles. That's because Fall Out Boy, seemingly overnight, because they went away. I don't know if they called it a hiatus or they broke up, but they came back together. You knew that, right? Mm-hmm. When they came back, their music was vastly different, very electronic based. Their vocalist lost a lot of weight, which I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Probably not. But they started making music that a lot of people think is kind of shitty.
I mean, I didn't like that Ghostbusters song.
So this album, going into it, I knew what to expect. I knew critically people were very down on this band. They thought that they were making very low-hanging fruit. But I wanted to give it an objective shot. I didn't want to be a dong about it. From the word go on this album, what I can say is that I think the production is very, very intricate. It's very in your face. It's all electronic. Long gone are the days where this is essentially a rock band. I think there are elements of rock music that they incorporate into their songs, but this band goes from trend to trend to trend, and the trend that they are on right now is of that, Imagine Dragons sort of. What's that electronic band that's really big right now that had the Colorado song what's that? I forget their name. They're terrible. You know what I'm talking about? They had that big song last year with the Jeep. Something about being in a Jeep.
Being in a Jeep?
Yeah. Why am I forgetting the name of this band? I brought them up on my music show.
Is it in the description of your podcast?
No.
Oh, I have no idea.
It's two guys. They make EDM music, but it's like poppy EDM music. One more people
just keep talking while I look it up.
So this band overnight has just started making just like really low-hanging fruit, unchallenging, safe, very tame EDM pop music. And I just think it's a little bit uninteresting. And even with the tongue-in-cheek sort of approach that they take with their music, it's just not interesting to me. And I don't think it's funny anymore. I don't think it's fun, period. You don't have to look it up anymore. Just contribute to the podcast now. I just don't think anything about this is appealing. And in fact, it came across more annoying than anything else.
There are a couple of songs that I ended up liking.
Okay.
I don't think anything is particularly lasting. Like, it didn't make me feel like I've been missing out on Fall Out Boy by any means.
Do you think this music will sound dated in 5 years?
In a sense, because I never responded to electronic music anyway, part of me already feels like I'm over it.
If I were to make the statement that dubstep
yeah.
saw its saw
Heyday.
its rise to fame in modern pop music. Would that make sense to you? Like
Yeah.
where people were incorporating those elements, and it's just like that came and went. It went out of style. And I think at the end of the day, the worst part about this album for me is they can do all this stuff and have all these stylistic approaches, but at the end of the day, if they write good songs, then I can at least give it that and be on board with it. But I don't even think the songs are that well written.
So I don't particularly hate anything, but it didn't, like, this album didn't make a case for Fall Out Boy. I like a couple of the songs. I'll probably listen to the album a couple more times to get a full grasp on the subject, but ultimately it's not very lasting to me, and it doesn't make me miss Fall Out Boy. It might make me go back and listen to their old stuff, but it doesn't make me want to go back and discover the stuff that I've missed over the past few years. It was fine. I did recognize some things that like are being done by Don Broco, which is a band that I'm a little bit.
Does that make you scared?
No.
Okay.
No, not really. I didn't. I mean, that was the part. I'm not even saying I hate it. I'm just saying that I noticed that there were parts that sounded similar to me, which intrigued me. But ultimately, it's just kind of whatever. I'm still questioning. Well, maybe I shouldn't. I mean, I guess the proof is in the pudding that they're still relevant, even though it doesn't feel like they are to me.
One of my favorite reviews of this album said that this album is so annoying from the first track, it's like they were warning you to turn back now.
I can hear that.
Yeah.
Which
is funny.
There are annoying things. I think it's like the first or second chorus.
The first track is actually it's probably one of the most challenging songs on the album for the listener, just because it's very intense. Like the song is super, super intense.
I think it's either the first or second song where like the chorus is like 90% just electronic.
Right.
Like there's not even, it's just removed of all vocals, and it's it was so kind of bizarre in a way.
It's kind of like the modern version of a na 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 type of chorus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just all bleeps and bloops.
Right.
Let's move on to another topic. Again, I did an entire episode. Well, I didn't do the entire episode. I spent a large portion of time talking about the new Justin Timberlake album that's coming out. What do you know about this album? Like, do you know anything about the weirdness and the strangeness of this album?
Wait,
that's going
we're talking
on?
about Timberlake?
A little bit.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were going up Mice and Men.
Yeah, we'll get there. Do you know anything about why people are so like baffled by this album right now?
No, not really.
So, did you hear the second single?
Yes.
What did you think of the second single?
We watched it. We watched the video together.
Did we?
It's just not. I mean, I don't even have any harsh criticisms other than I do think it's a little too weird for me. Like it's outside of my realm.
The new one? The
yeah.
one that sounds like a Drake song?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's only to me there's only parts of things that I recognize as far as like what I'm into, but I can already tell based on these two singles that this is not an album I'm going to respond to hardly at all.
Okay, interesting.
I in general, I'm a massive fan of Timberlake as a personality, but the past couple albums, like even the 2020 or whatever it was,
Experience,
like I didn't respond to that one really either.
Right.
Even the Future Sex Love Sounds.
Yeah.
Like Justin Timberlake to me was just like justified.
He's kind of just a talented guy.
It was justified, and then I like him as a personality and enjoy him, but I've never really considered myself a fan of Justin Timberlake's music.
Right.
I've just never been that responsive to it.
So where a lot of the confusion comes from with this album is centered around the announcement of it. The fact that it's called Man of the Woods, a lot of the marketing material and the things that he's speaking about is about going back to his roots and being just a very personal album. And just it seems like this was going to be his sort of folksy Americana, maybe acoustic sort of album. And that's just like not what we're getting.
Yeah, people thought it was going to be unplugged and stripped down a little bit.
So then we get the two singles and it's just like, what the fuck is this? And then we get this sort of trailer for it, a new trailer, and it's sort of like a trailer mixed with like a mini documentary with him recording the songs, and we get some more explanation of what he's going for, and we also get some more snippets of songs. his explanation of what he's doing is essentially trying to take an old retro sort of sound of his heritage of being from the South, of being from Tennessee, but mixing it with modern music. So I kind of get it, but I'm kind of like, that's not new. That's like,
Well,
what?
So I think it's interesting that he's still involved with the same company.
What do you mean?
He's still hanging out with Timberlake and doing this.
Oh, yeah.
So
And Pharrell and the Neptunes and whatnot.
So I do like Supplies better than the first song for
Right.
sure.
Hey.
But I think even with 2020 experience, I think that he's always cared about just being completely different than anything else. Because I don't.
Okay, interesting.
Was 2020 experience commercially huge?
There were some songs on it that were some singles for sure.
Okay.
But he definitely is known for going, yeah, you're right. He does do, I think the album that is the most out there for him is actually Future Sex Love Sounds. If you just look at the track listing for that album alone is enough to be like, what is he doing on this thing? There's slashes, and one of his biggest single has the word interlude in it. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
This sort of follows suit in that's been my impression of him lately is that he's becoming more bizarre. And like when I think about like the songs that are out on the radio, I haven't thought of Timberlake in years.
Right. Well, there's a reason for that. He hasn't been prolific.
As far as catering. Oh, I was just mainly talking about catering towards the popular sound.
Right.
Currently.
Do you know when Justified came out?
It's like 2003 or something like that.
A long time ago. This is only his fourth album.
Yeah.
That's a long time to spend between albums, and he sort of addressed that in an interview with Zane Lowe, talking about the birth of his child, some creative issues that happened with his record label and Pharrell, the fact that he couldn't work with Pharrell anymore for a long period of time. But the other interesting aspect of this that I find hilarious, listening to some of these song clips, man, there are just so many different ideas. Like the first song and Supplies already sound so different from each other.
Yeah.
There was a song that sounded like Hotline Bling on it. There was a song that sounded like that big Ed Sheeran song. There was like a piano ballad, this acoustic country style song. There's like a spoken word song with his wife in there. So all of a sudden, first of all, a handful of things I've just mentioned are just, again, biting on trends that are popular and current. Right. Also, the fact that I'm worried that this album is going to sound very disjointed. I talked about all this already in my music show. But the other interesting thing, and this is another take I want from you, I'm not saying this is the case. It's just purely based on observation. The fact that he isn't prolific, and he sort of comes around every so often, and the fact that his music is, again, biting on certain trends every time they come around, and especially with this one, having this song with a trap beat. We know how popular rap music is. A song that sounds like that Ed Sheeran song that was massive last year. Is there any sense of this being a little bit disingenuous, that he might be putting this album out just to sort of be like, hey, I can get some money for doing this album?
I don't know if I have the full picture to be able to judge that.
Right.
But as you're talking and sort of describing this to me, part of me wonders what it would actually sound like if he was actually just as trendy as everyone else.
Right.
And it was putting out music as frequently as all these other people. Because I think it would be, to me, it would be more interesting to compare him to these artists. Like, I think you're weary of him following trends. Like, I don't know if it's that you don't want him to, or just the fact that you're judging that he's saying he doesn't want to, yet he still does ultimately. But it kind of fascinates me. I wish he was more frequent and doing. I'm fine with him following the trends or just trying to expand on those, because I would like to be able to compare Timberlake to Drake even more so.
Absolutely.
Because if those two artists were challenging each other, because I don't think those two artists, even though they're in the same circles, I don't think they challenge each other. Like, they're in no realm.
Not like Drake and Kanye challenge each other.
There's no competition between Justin Timberlake and Drake, and I think I would be more intrigued if there was, instead of him kind of operating outside of those circles.
Well, I think I'm having this part of the conversation because Justin Timberlake is in my opinion, the highest point of a music artist in terms of their fame.
I would say celebrity.
Yes, they're in another stratosphere. He is on the Kanye level. He is on the Beyonce level. He is on the Taylor Swift level. It's so high. There's far less at risk here. So there's no need to be trendy. That's why you can make a Lemonade. That's why you can make a Life of Pablo and push the boundaries. It's like Christopher Nolan. Like, Christopher Nolan can make whatever the fuck he wants without there being a property attached to it, and people still show up. He can take these risks if he wants to. So there's just no real reason to follow any sort of trends. And I think he can be more prolific and take these sort of risks.
I just think it's interesting that he is he's such a celebrity that his music, which is what got him famous, is the thing I care about from him the least.
Yeah, it's on the back burner.
Like, it's like I'm excited to see him on SNL or on Jimmy Fallon to see what they come up with, or like I'm even intrigued by his acting career, even though it's not like that's not registering at all, really. I feel like he just does it when he wants to. But
you know who's doing all of the things that we're challenging Justin Timberlake to do, and he has no business doing it?
Ansel Elgort?
No. Donald Glover.
Yeah.
Donald Glover is nowhere near the level of fame and fortune in a music sense as Justin Timberlake.
Right.
And in fact, I would even argue that his presence doesn't carry near the same weight in even film and television. It probably will at a certain point.
Maybe.
But yet he just said, oh, that rapping thing I did? Nah. I'm just going to put out this really weird album called Awaken My Love and then get tons of acclaim, tons of Grammy nominations, and have it be played in one of the most talked about movies of the year and get out. Like, see, if you just take those risks and you can do it well and you can execute it, the payoff is there. Let's move on. Let's talk about Of Mice and Men. I know that I have no idea what you think about this album. I have no idea what you think about what this band is doing. So I'm all ears right now.
So Of Mice and Men, when they first came out, so for those of you who don't know, by the way, Of Mice and Men is, we sort of at the beginning of the year challenged our listeners and followers in the Facebook group to broaden their horizons when it comes to music, and that's something that I'll do eventually as far as either listing bands or songs that might bridge the gap and get people more involved in the metalcore scene or the post-hardcore scene, whatever you want to call it.
I thought you were going to say, that's something that I'm going to do as well. Broaden my horizons.
I think I've already done that.
I agree.
So
continue.
Of Mice and Men, for those of you who don't know, they're one of the biggest bands in the genre. And Of Mice and Men started as sort of at least in my opinion, it was sort of like a reaction to what was going on in the scene a few years back. So
a little bit.
The screamer, Austin Carlisle, who's no longer in the band, at the time he was in Attack Attack, which was one of the biggest bands. They had a huge debut album.
Which is strange because this all happened, the time span of Attack Attack's rise to popularity and the launching of Mice and Men literally happened as the entire music scene was falling apart.
Yeah, in a way
popularity,
in a way that Austin Carlisle left Attack Attack and joined Of Mice and Men, and Of Mice and Men was still able to sort of float to the top.
Absolutely.
Like they were just like, and that's why I sort of called it like a reactionary band. Like maybe their success completely hinged on the fact that they had Austin Carlisle.
Also makes no sense, right? What bands get their own, what screamers, so the way that Of Mice and Men were formed when he left Attack Attack, is it Craig Davidson? Is that his name? From Rise Records president and owner was such a massive fan of this screamer, not singer, that he basically formed his own band.
So there are a few screaming vocalists, which is interesting in general because I do that in a much smaller level, and I'm able to recognize like the screamer is the screamer of the band. He is not an instrumentalist. He's not. I don't consider myself a musician. So when I see a screamer in a band, I don't consider them a musician.
It's a very few music styles where the drummer can easily eclipse the lead singer.
Unless he is playing a guitar while screaming, I don't give him as much credit as everyone else, even though that's the thing that I listen to the most when it comes to music.
It's also one of the most challenging things to do in terms of longevity.
Yes. So because the genre can move on without you.
Is
that what you're saying?
Or your body can literally fail you while you're doing it.
So anyway, when Austin Carlisle joined Of Mice and Men, to me, Of Mice and Men just sounded like Attack Attack. And because they had Austin Carlisle.
Right.
Because Austin Carlisle, again, he's he's a screamer with a face and a name. Like he was a very, he's one of the most popular band members of the entire genre. And it's based purely on how unique his sound is. His scream sounds like it's just made out of a computer.
Right.
It's so distinct and unique. You know when you hear a song featuring Austin Carlisle.
I would go so far to say that his vocal ended up becoming sort of...
It's a character.
It became something that was imitated production-wise. You started hearing a lot of production sort of trying to mimic... just the overall tone of his voice.
I agree with that completely, and I think I give him a lot of credit for that because again, he's sort of a character in that way. So anyway, not to go through the entire history, but their first album, it was in 2010. I didn't care for because I didn't really like Attack Attack, and I was just sort of over this music.
I enjoyed it,
and it wasn't until 2014. When they brought in sort of a new metal vibe, and they had a...
Really? Whoa. Time out. You're talking the third album?
Yeah.
You skipped over the second?
Yeah, I don't...
The second's the best one.
You think The Flood is better than...
100%. In fact...
Better than Restoring Force?
100%. In fact, well, I don't like that album at all.
Restoring Force?
I do not think it's a good album. I think it's a bad album, in fact.
Wow. I don't agree.
I think it's it's well written, but I think it's I just don't think they executed some of their decision making properly.
Well, to speak, and again, I didn't intend on going through their entire history, but I
that
think
second album is
if I'm talking to my listeners and I was to tell them like any recent records that might get you into this sound, Restoring Force has a lot of like what Bring Me to the Horizon's doing, which is a band that you would probably recommend to some people now.
It is, but for a completely different reason.
It's got some Linkin Park vibes, like, but still maintaining their sound for the most part.
I think that second album is a much more accessible album than that third album.
Well, so when did the new singer come in?
So the third album was the first one.
Force.
He joined. He was originally the vocalist for the band Jamie's Elsewhere, a band that I enjoyed quite a bit.
Yeah. So anyway, my point is
we did an episode where we sort of went through some of the stuff with this band.
My point being, their debut I did not care for because I thought I was just done with that music entirely. And then they brought me back in 2014 with Restoring Force, and I saw that they were moving towards a more I don't know if I would accessible is the first word I would use with this new album, Defy, but because I was surprised how metally it was.
Yeah, it's definitely so. I think the way to phrase a lot of the discussion about this band is that they are becoming more accessible, especially to accessible rock music. So. If we talk about just alt rock that's played on the radio or just radio rock in general, I would throw out bands like Godsmack in this whole discussion. I would throw out bands like Breaking Benjamin, even a band like, to a certain extent, maybe Avenged Sevenfold, just bands that blend accessible songwriting with metal in general. Also even Metallica to a certain extent, because, and I guess we'll just get into it, one of the first things that I noticed about this album, and it has nothing to do with the quality of it, the guitar tones in this album sound so much like Saint Anger, like that it's hilarious. There is a riff in one song, I don't remember what song it is. It opens up, it's like I'm just like, this is legitimately off of Saint Anger.
Saint Anger is a Metallica album.
It's one of the worst albums I've ever heard in my entire life. But this album, that doesn't say anything about this album, but I just thought that it was interesting. Anyways, continue with your take of this project.
I mean, the only thing that I had left to say, and I wanted just to stop talking and hear you talk more about it more, but Austin Carlisle's no longer in the band.
Right. So
again, I enjoyed his transformation in the band, but it was kind of, I didn't even hear their last album, I don't think. The Cold World. I don't know if I heard that. I think I missed a couple. No, or I missed one from 2 years ago. But I guess I was surprised that it was more metal-y than ever to me, and I don't know if it matters that he's not involved or not. But I dug it.
Yeah,
I dug it. I don't know if I enjoy it as much as I enjoy Restoring Force, but I do enjoy it, and I will be listening to this and learning it for the next few weeks. I'm definitely more. This is definitely more. For me than, say, the Fall Out Boy.
Right,
album.
for sure. Listen, let's not beat around the bush here when we're talking about accessibility. By Austin Carlisle leaving, don't get me wrong, the success that they've garnered just with him being the frontman of this band, just having a screamer in general is something to be commended. Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about accessibility, we're talking about the fact that they are adding a lot more singing.
Yes.
I was excited. I think Austin Carlisle is fantastic, but the fact that they are adding more singing to the music made me excited just because of how versatile and diverse their music could potentially be. This is a band that, in my opinion, utilize screaming and singing pretty well in their music already. I've talked about how monotonous modern metalcore music can be just because the recipe is scream the verse, sing the chorus, scream the verse, sing the chorus.
Right.
This is a band that mix that up to a certain extent from time to time. You would hear entire songs where they just didn't scream that much. There would be a lot of singing. The first single that came out from this, Unbreakable, I thought was absolutely fantastic. It's not that I didn't care for the additional singles that came out after that. It's just it was either I didn't think they were as strong, or I had already heard the songs on Unbreakable. I think from front to back, this is an album full of absolute bangers if you were to just listen to them randomly, sporadically. However, I think the listening experience for me personally, listening to this from front to back, became a little bit tedious after a while because I started to hear a lot of repetitive ideas. The songwriting formula that they discovered and came up with, they essentially stick to throughout the entirety of the album. There are a few songs on here that, and I'll have a review coming out next week, but there are a few songs that sort of do some different things. The song Money was a very refreshing song to hear.
I think that's the one I really liked, yeah.
But they didn't write it. That is a Pink Floyd cover. And
is it really?
Yeah, it's a Pink Floyd cover. And so, yeah, that's funny. But I was wanting to know if you knew that or not.
No idea.
So that's a nice point where it kind of changes up. But song after song, they retread on some of the same ideas. So I think if you were to just play this on shuffle, you could probably discover songs you never knew you liked. But there were songs that I found running together a little bit, riffs that sounded very repetitive. But that doesn't mean that it's not a good album. I think it's executed very well. One thing that I think really lacks in this project is the production. The production is good, but it's missing a little bit of energy, right? So we talk sometimes about the Michael Bay approach of a lot of modern metalcore production. And I get that. I don't like when things are just over the top, like crazy, missiles exploding and metal songs. But this one it was missing a level of energy to it that I think it really needed. Like,
you just did you want it to have more bump? Is that what you're
absolutely,
saying?
Especially I think if you were to listen to this in comparison to an album like All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us by
Architects.
by Architects, you would notice the energy level just
Yeah.
by how much emotion is being pumped through from one song to another. I would definitely challenge people to do. But I do think 100%, if you are somebody that has been looking for some more aggressive music to get into, this is a great starting point because the songs are very catchy, very anthemic songs that you could probably hear chanted at music festivals. I mean, yeah. The other thing that I'll say is they might get a visit from the lyric police in some of these songs because, I mean,
I haven't looked at them.
Using phrases like defy. I mean, just read off some of the song titles here, and you could probably find some very commonly used phrases in metal songs.
On the inside, how will you live? Defy,
Unbreakable.
back to me, unbreakable,
Yeah, a lot of the songs deal with like you.
Warzone.
Yeah, don't come near me. Stay away from me.
Right.
I'll overcome.
It's the
battle.
breaking Benjamin coming out of them.
Yeah, and it's like, but to their defense, they're obviously clearly trying to appeal to more people with this album. I think they've done so. The real challenge is this next project. You can't make the same album again. This is very cookie cutter. It is very straightforward. It's very formulaic, and I give them a pass because they're trying something new here. But they've got to exceed that in the next project.
You want to know what I think will make a huge difference on what they sound like next time? What happens with Bring Me the Horizon's next album?
Absolutely.
Because they play in the same circles.
Sort of.
But and I'm not acting as if they're going to mimic anything that they might do. I think that Bring Me the Horizon is a band that will sort of it's a call to action for all of these other bands as far as how they will respond with their next release.
They set a tone. They've sort of become the Kanye West of rock music in the sense where they sort of set the bar for things to come. The thing that I will say about, and I'm glad you brought up Bring Me the Horizon because we talk about Bring Me the Horizon a lot, and you can make those comparisons on the surface just because Bring Me the Horizon is such an accessible rock band today. But the thing that separates Bring Me the Horizon from a band like Of Mice and Men, even though on the surface the songs are very catchy and poppy and this and that, is the fact that Bring Me the Horizon, their songs are very very formulaic in how they're structured, but there's so much more to listen to. The production on Bring Me the Horizon is so intricate. Jordan Fish, his contribution to the songs it just adds another layer. Just listening to a song like Doomed, the first track on That's the Spirit, and then it far exceeds the artistry and the interest level of anything on this Of Mice and Men album. And I think that's the thing to take away comparing Bring Me the Horizon and Of Mice and Men, or at least these two albums, is just, even though the song structures are very similar, how poppy they are, how catchy they are, Bring Me the Horizon brings so much more to the table. Did you hear anything I said because you went to the bathroom?
No.
Well, I will reiterate something to you because this is important to know.
Okay.
On the surface, the Bring Me the Horizon songs are similar to this because they're catchy, they're all this. But Bring Me the Horizon, the production level involved with their music,
more dynamic.
Far exceeds. I mean, at the end of the day, Of Mice and Men is guitar, bass, drums, vocals, right?
But it's not. The production is not notable in this album.
The intricacy of Bring Me the Horizon is far more interesting.
Yeah.
It's like going to see Tomb Raider and then going to see, anything else. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. It's like going to see Fast and Furious, then turning around and going and watching Blade Runner.
I get that.
Let's talk about these two Drake songs just for a second. I joked that we were going to be changing the topic to just Drake, and then I listened to these two songs and I said, there's no reason to do that. What did you think about these songs?
Not that impressionable.
Yeah.
They're fine. I'm the kind of
the first song is more of a ear grabber than the second.
I think I like the second one more.
Really?
Yeah, but ultimately
Those bars though.
There's right. To me, I like songs. I like hearing Drake just go in and do just cater more so to just pop in general. Like when I listen to Drake, I'm either listening to some of his like bangers, like where
Really?
or I'm listening to just like the hits, like Too Good or Controlla.
The first song was more of a Hotline Bling or a Fake Love.
It didn't sound like it wasn't as catchy to me.
Did you listen to them in order? Because
I listened.
I'm so shocked by that take.
What's the first one's called? God's Young or some shit like
God's
that.
Love. Yeah.
God's Love, and then the second one has 2 long words as the title.
Yeah, I
Can't
don't
remember what they are. Yeah, I like the second one more.
Yeah. So these two songs, like my take on it was the first song was more of just Drake doing his dancey sort of pop vibe. That the first time we heard it on Views was a little bit off-putting, but then when we heard it when we heard it on More Life, it's like he figured it out a little bit more. So this God's Love song sounded more to me like a Hotline Bling or a Fake Love or a
God's
Controlla.
Plan. We were both wrong.
Is it God's Plan?
God's
Okay,
Plan and
excuse me.
Diplomatic Immunity.
So that song is what that reminded me of that. The second song on the album or on the EP or whatever it is, the second track is one of my least favorite Drake takes that he does, period. If you didn't know, you should. There's many different sides to Drake. Drake talks and raps in many different voices. He'll sing in different accents. And
Yeah.
the second song is this stream of consciousness, very straightforward sort of hip-hop song that he's been doing all the way since his first EP, and we've just heard it so many times. Like the only reason you would, in my opinion, listen to this song very intently is if he has something specific to say, like if he's calling somebody out or he's revealing something about his personal life that you didn't know and people can talk about it. But this has no replay value. You can hear this same song. There might be 20 songs that sound exactly like this that offer nothing. They're not catchy. The beats are repetitive and boring.
Your reaction to these songs and the way how you're describing these two songs is probably how I ultimately feel about the majority of his catalog, and maybe why I've always been curious as to why you have such a fandom for Drake.
Right.
Because how I felt about these songs is how I feel about most of it.
Yeah. So when I say that Drake has so many sides, like people think he has his pop side and his rap side, and that's true to a certain extent. But there's so many facets within that. You have pop songs like "Hold On, We're Going Home" and "Hotline Bling," which are one thing. Then you have a more slow jam type of song like Marvin's Room or Successful or Houston, Atlanta, Vegas. And then you have the rap side, like the second song I'm describing, but that sounds wildly different than a song like Pop Style or Back to Back.
Right.
Wildly different. I mean, those are bangers that you would hear in a club. You would never hear this song in a club. I said this in my reaction. I don't go to Drake to think about my life. That's just not what I'm here for. Okay, I'm sorry, but it's just not. Which
is funny because I think that's primarily what he's known for. He's known for the guy that gets in the feels.
He is. He's more introspective, but on the most surface level possible. He sings about women, fame, and his mother. Like those are like the three things, and his friends. Like, don't care. Just don't care about it at this point. Lyrical content with Drake is so just outside of the box for me. The important thing to note about this song and the fact that they exist, the fact that they were released is the most interesting thing. This signals I've got something coming. And I've seen images of him in the studio and this and that. I've got my ear to the ground with Drake, if you didn't know. It's also important to note the sound that he's incorporating on this song, because leading up to, if you're reading this, it's too late, his stylistic approach, his aesthetic was very minimalistic, very stripped down beats, very basic beats, and that's what we got on that album. And leading up to Views and even More Life, the songs were more high definition, colorful, very crisp and sharp sounding songs, which we hadn't really heard from Drake in the past. He's always been known for his production to be very murky sounding, very dark and dreary. And the production on these songs was a little bit more of that, a little bit more retro sounding with Drake, but they sounded a little bit darker to me. Even the album cover itself, we've never really seen something like that or the artwork for this project. We've never seen something like that from Drake. Black background, some gothic sort of lettering, a little bit creepy of a vibe. It's called Scary Hours. Is that strange to you that he just named this single like some sort of release?
It's weird, yeah.
Maybe that's the name of his new album. When do you think...
Like on Spotify, they're both listed as Scary Hours. It's not until you go into it where you see that it's... I mean, the way it's sorted on Spotify is that both of these singles belong on Scary Hours. Like
you have your ear to the ground for music releases. You know when things are going to come out. When do you think this Drake album is going to drop?
I don't know.
It could be.
Were you making
in
fun
5
of me?
minutes?
I have no fucking idea.
I'm just joking. Just what would you think? Just give me a date. Let's just make a bet here. What do you think? Not a bet, but let's just make
early May.
Early May. I like that.
Here's
why that's a great pick.
Nothing to base that off.
Here's why that's a great pick. Drake loves having the songs of summer. However, if we're led, I don't think either of these have anything to do with summer. Like they don't sound like that at all to me. You know, he's not giving the island vibes. I wouldn't be surprised if we got something a little bit sooner rather than later. I think maybe April.
Scary Hours is going to be this year's Infinity War.
Could be April. I'm thinking. I'm going to say something in April.
Okay.
He's 31 now. He's been around for a long time.
He has.
Still a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much else. There was a lot of shit that came out this week. Music's looking promising already in 2018.
I agree. To bring it back around, I'm more high on music and TV than movies.
Right.
I'm going to go see The Post tomorrow, though, I think.
Let's wrap this shit up. Where can people find you online?
Twitter and Instagram. At What Up Snell. You can find me on the YouTube channel. We are currently trying to get 1,000 subscribers. So, we interact with a lot of the same people in our Facebook group and on Twitter, and we love it. But, like, if you're a listener on SK Plus and you're not as involved with Sight and Sound that some other people, we would love to hang out with you. So, come subscribe to our YouTube channel and see all the fun stuff that we're doing. You can interact with us on the Facebook group, and we can talk about everything. Pretty much everything that we talk about on the podcast. Come hang out with us. You're more than welcome to. And the link for that is in this description. Jay Williams.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at J Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E. It's the same for both. Lots of YouTube content coming down the pipe. I've got a whole set of notes on my phone, just ideas of shit that I'm going to do. Trying to do that 5 videos a week thing. Might be easier than I thought. Not really. It's really finding the time.
If I can help, yeah.
It's really finding the time to do it. But yeah, that's what's going on. Make sure to join the Facebook group. That's where you can be a part of the Sight and Sound Record Club, where we're listening to the 1975's catalog. Up next, we have their album, I Like It When You Sleep, for You're So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It. And we'll be doing a live listen along. Come join us. Come hang out with us.
All right, take it easy.
Goodbye.